Hey Trailblazers and Tarmac Tacklers, welcome back to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast. I am your host, Nick Hancock, UASCA UK Athletics registered certified running coach and author of the two cookbooks, the ultimate cookbooks for runners. And I am here with
Faye Johnson, personal trainer and running coach. And yeah, that's me. And
Hi, Faye.
myself. Hi.
It's so good to see you and actually have you on the podcast because it's been a little while.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think when the last one was that we recorded together.
We met with Paul from Soulmate.
Ah, that was it. Yeah. Okay, that wasn't too long ago.
It feels like years have passed since even Christmas. So yeah.
This is true. We're recording on Thursday, the 9th of January.
And it feels like January's already been 3 months long. But yeah.
January's like that every year. It's like it's the 314th of January.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
how was your Christmas?
It was good. Nice to have 2 weeks off. Definitely a novelty. And yeah, I was poorly again. I had a bout of flu in November, and then I had a really bad head cold and cough over Christmas. I blame my new working environment, but I just need to harden up my immunity. But that's what you get for working from home for 5 years.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you and like it feels like every check-in I've done in the last couple of weeks has been about somebody getting ill. There has been a quite bad winter virus apparently going around. Touch wood, haven't had it or haven't been in the country for a couple of weeks, but yeah.
I think part of the problem is we had when you were away, you missed some cracking wet and wild weather. But it was really mild, and I just think it's a asking for bugs and illnesses and stuff. But now we're in the middle of freezing cold weather, so maybe that will help.
Yeah, it's Baltic out there at the moment.
Yeah.
Ran home last night and it was -5.
Yeah, I went out this morning and it was about -3, -4. And that was at what, 7? But yeah, it's chilly.
Yeah, indeed. Well, it is January and we've still got like 400 days of January to go. And you have a well, I've picked on you for the subject of this week's podcast because it is a good one to do because it is January and new year, new me, and of course I feel like we do this every year, this talk, and people come out of January with goals, but it's like, well, New Year's resolutions, and I just find so often they're just quite unspecific. Like, I want to run.
Slightly unachievable generally, or they're the same as what someone else has decided to do.
Yeah.
It can be quite easy to get caught up in things, can't it? Like the classic, I'm going to be more active.
I'm going to lose weight.
Yeah, I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to cut out chocolate. This is a funny story. I was at work on Monday and I said, I've eaten a lot of chocolate this Christmas, more than any other sweet thing. It's been chocolate. And then I thought, after the conversation, I was like, I might try and give it a miss for a few weeks. And then literally the next day, without even thinking about it, I'd eaten a Kit Kat and a cookie. And then I was like, sod it, I'm not doing it. It's just not. And it's one of those things where we'll get onto this, but that moderation is key. And I think as soon as you deprive yourself of anything or put the pressure on yourself, you must do something, I think that's when the wheels can start to fall off. And you just feel unnecessary pressure to achieve something or do something that, do you really need to be doing it? That's often the question.
It's always those extremities, isn't it? That we see all the time. Like, I've heard of this diet called the human being diet, and
I dread to
Okay.
think
Alison, my wife, is probably going to be listening to this.
what is the
She
human
grew up.
being diet?
Oh, you basically only eat vegetables.
Okay.
Like that is it. That's all you eat
So
for
you're
two
going to be
days.
on the toilet all the time.
Well, that for 2 days, that is it. You do not eat anything else other than vegetables for two
Okay.
days and only three times a day, and you have like massive gaps in between. I mean, you're fucking starving.
Oh my goodness.
Um, yeah, I must admit, I said, okay, I'll do 2 of those days with you, and within
Oh,
like,
so Alison is doing it.
no, no, she did this before Christmas, and
Okay.
she's gonna
Okay.
do it again. It's not mega extreme. Those
Mm.
first 2 days are extreme, but like within 2 hours, I was like, no, bollocks to this. I need energy. I need energy to run.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and have an Oreo. Um,
Yeah.
so so yeah, no, I sacked that off pretty quickly. But there's that. There's people going keto and cutting out. Oh, carbs. Carbs are bad. Carbs aren't bad at all. Um, yeah, and it's that kind of extreme thing where, but then you hear it time and time again. People go, "Oh, well, that diet worked for me before." So, well, obviously, it hasn't worked for you long term
No,
because you've gotten fat again. So why don't you just eat in moderation and eat the things that your body needs when it needs it, and not too much of
absolutely.
it?
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's that boom or bust approach that people often take. And same for, running and
Yeah.
exercise of any description. Someone will, I know recently our running club did their club London Marathon place. So they offered it out, they put names in a hat, someone got pulled out. And appreciate this person they run anyway, which is good. But people who've never run a marathon suddenly get a marathon place and go online, sign themselves up to one of these. I can't even think what it's called, but I saw someone share something the other day from one of these AI online coaches. And
Mm-hmm.
I pulled my hair out looking at this
Mm-hmm.
that had been shared
Yeah.
at the lack of I can never say the word specificity.
Specificity.
Put my teeth in. And just how ridiculous the volume was. And it was just week one. And I despaired at that. And I just thought, you know, that's one example. The other example is someone walks into a gym, they haven't exercised for about 3 years. They sign up and they decide they're going to come 5 days a week and
Mm-hmm.
crash bang wallop. They either injure themselves or worse, you know. Yeah. And I saw that so many times over the year, and it's over the years working in gyms where, yeah, January into February has become this period of punishment where people feel like they have to, set these goals and, suddenly completely turn life on its head and go, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week.
Mm.
I'm going to eat vegetables, um, but not going to change anything else.
Yeah.
And then come third week of February, they're absolutely burnt out.
And the
Because
funny
it's not,
thing is,
yeah.
like, particularly when we're talking about, that sort of post-Christmas weight loss thing, people get so obsessed with it because they think, oh, I've gotten really fat over Christmas. But Steve Winrow,
Mm-hmm.
nutritionist that we've chatted to plenty of times, and I've been chatting with him today about getting him on again. And he shared on one of his stories, um, in order to put on a kilogram of actual fat, nothing else, no water weight, salt, sodium,
Mm.
retention, that kind of stuff, pure fat, you need to eat 7,500 calories in excess of your daily
Yeah.
expenditure. Like, that
It's a
is
lot of
a
food. Well,
lot.
it's not, yeah, it's a lot of calories, isn't it? It's more than really a normal human being could do. And I
Yeah.
think part of the problem with Christmas is firstly, you don't eat in the same routine as you do in normal life. The routine goes out the window, which I think is one of the biggest factors with
Mm.
everything, whether it's your exercise, your running, your eating. The routine is up all on its head, isn't it? Because you might have time off, you're spending time with family, friends, and you're being pulled from pillar to post. And I think
Or go
that's
to an all-inclusive, like in my case,
all that, yeah.
and just eat 5 desserts every lunch and dinner.
But I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? And I think that's one of the biggest things that kind of has an effect on people psychologically, is just that their routine's different. So they feel all out of sorts. And it might not even be that they've eaten that much. It might just be, or that they've missed a training run. It might just be because they've not done it on the same day that they would normally do it, or they've eaten their dinner at 3 p.m. Do you know what I mean? Because it goes on for 3 hours and things like that. So I just think that, it's putting aside that boom or bust extreme attitude towards your goal setting and just being a bit more specific and realistic for what you want and what you're aiming to do, really.
Okay, cool. So we've set the scene. We all know we're a bit mental after Christmas. Myself included. I'm like, right, got to do this, and then end up sort of sitting myself down and going, right, let's be specific, smart about our goals. How are we going to do them? What's the process? What's the outcome we're looking for? And if that outcome doesn't happen, what's the kind of the next outcome we're looking for? I always try and, that's something I personally do, is I go, right, here's my A goal. That's kind of what I want to achieve. But if we don't quite get there because X, Y, and Z might happen, and it does,
Yeah.
My life, X, Y, and Z happens on a day-to-day basis with things with Alison's health and of course kids and stuff. So I think there are roadblocks, and sometimes we need to adjust. So having that sort of B goal, I think, is quite important.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's a good place to start. So if you start with that kind of the outcome, the bigger picture, you obviously have to have a starting point. And specifically with running, I'm thinking, let's take now and let's say Liverpool, London or Manchester marathon in April. Let's take that. Because if someone, has, and this is very common, as you'll know, people have either not really thought about the marathon pre-Christmas because it's months away. And then January goes, what? I've got a marathon in 4 months' time. But you've still got time, and you've still got time to do it in a sensible way. So it's having
and I would say that even for like some of the the people that have got in through the ballot or through a charity and have never run much, if at all, in their life, you do still have time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it ideal? No.
No.
Is it a total disaster? No.
Exactly. And it's about then sitting yourself down and going, right, I've got this marathon at the end of April. Firstly, that's my bigger goal. But what I need to do then is think about breaking that down into smaller chunks and thinking about how I can reach that goal. Firstly, thinking about what's your objective. Some people, as the example you just gave, perhaps they've never run a marathon before. So their goal may be to get round. Well, actually, let's rewind. Get to the start line fit, healthy, and not injured, I think should be the first kind of key around that. And then thinking, generally, it's I just want to get round. I just want to enjoy it. And that's fine. And that's absolutely fine. And they're all really important points. If it's more, I want to run in a specific time, again, still absolutely fine. But that's your specific goal. So it might be, I want to run, 4 hours. Great. But then we can then sit down and go, look, let's break that down, because it's quite daunting to sit here now and go, right, your goal is that marathon at the end of April. That's a little bit overwhelming. So what I've always
tell me about it. Like,
yeah.
Well, I set myself the challenge of trying to run a championship qualifying time of 2:35, which even for me right now, sat here in the ninth of 465 days of January, I'm thinking, what the hell? Like,
Absolutely.
but it's important not to think. Like, you set the goal. I've
Yeah,
set that goal.
it's there.
I absolutely want to do it, and it definitely is on my mind. However, it is now not my focus.
Absolutely. Your focus is the training run you're going to do tomorrow.
Hmm.
Do you know that is it's kind of going like we were saying before, it's about them putting your head in gear and being ready for the process that's to come, and
Yeah,
being aware of, what will be happening on a daily, on a weekly basis, for the next 15 weeks, that will get me to that start line feeling good, feeling confident, and ready to run the marathon. And yeah, literally breaking it down either into, a week to week or 4 weeks. I know I've got some people who, particularly in the past, who like to see 4 weeks ahead in their plan most of the time. And then I've got people who don't
not a fan
really
of
don't really care.
that.
They're like, great, I've got my you know, I've got my sessions, I can see what's coming up for the rest of the week and I'm happy with that. Um and everybody's different. And I think, that is again what you need to take the time to do to make it specific to you or the person you're working with, to make sure that you're working to basically complement them on a personality basis and how they work. Because I was thinking about this, listening to something earlier, and I'll ask you the question: what kind of person do you think you are when it comes to? And I'm talking about in training, because I think we have a different personality in training than perhaps in work, than perhaps in life. And I think it's interesting then to see how you would approach your goals, setting your goals, and kind of work through that process.
Hmm. Okay, so in training, I'm very much about setting the goal, believing that I can achieve the goal.
Yeah.
I actually listened to a very good book actually on Audible called with Winning in Mind by a guy
Mm-hmm.
called Lanny Basham. He was like a rifle shooter in the Olympics or something, so not totally running specific, but there's something I now practice every day that he, from a practical standpoint, was about setting that goal of, right, in my case, I want to run a 2:35 marathon, because that's the championship qualifying time in London. Um, but it's not about saying I'm going to try and run that time. It's not even about believing that you can run that time. The part of his kind of process is about telling yourself that you are a 2:35 marathoner. That is what I am.
Absolutely.
That is what I do.
Yeah, it's
Like, and
the
I've been
language.
saying, yeah,
Yeah.
I've been saying that to myself every morning for the last 3 months. So, yeah, that's kind of one part of it. I'm very much about that end goal, but once that goal is set, other than me kind of practicing my daily mantra of I am a 2:35 marathoner, I don't focus on it. My focus is on the week ahead, the process. I actually say to my runners all the time, focus on the week that you're in. Don't worry
Yeah.
about what's next week,
No.
or the classic, how long is my longest run going to be?
Oh, always. Yes.
Stop asking that question, people.
Absolutely. But I think that's important though. It's important for motivation because, like we said, seeing the full picture is daunting for
Mhm.
anybody, no matter where what your experience or your ability is. And secondly, it's just unnecessary stuff to put in your head at that particular time.
Yeah.
And knowing what session is coming in 3 weeks' time is irrelevant because you're not ready for that session yet.
Mm. And when you're being coached by, a good coach like you or me, um, it might be that in 3 weeks' time that run isn't going to be done because
Absolutely.
something might happen. You might get injured, you might get ill, you might decide to go on holiday for that week.
Yeah.
You might not, you might have gotten ill this week. So in 3 weeks' time, that session is going to change because we need to rebuild you out of sickness
Yeah.
to get you back up to full tilt again. So, and this is why I don't write plans because they invariably need to change. And if
Absolutely.
and I don't actually program for my runners any further than 2 weeks is unless I've got a couple of people um that work certain shifts and
Yeah.
they have to do they have to know what they're going to be doing just so they can plan it around their work or
Or
you know
life.
care with
Yeah.
family members or something like that. So but that's a couple of people. On the whole, I literally have 2 weeks ahead is about as maximum as it gets. And that's not. I have a long range plan. There's
Mm.
always a long range plan for my athletes, um, but that short term piece, I just don't like people seeing any further than that. And that's not because I'm trying to hide something. It's because I just want them to focus on the week that they're in, the
Yeah.
week or two that they're in. That's,
It's interesting because some people do look ahead and some people don't,
hmm,
and don't even, ask about it, which is, again, how different people approach
hmm. I see it
training.
in I see it in like boxing, for example.
Mm.
Like Anthony Joshua, I think is a really classic example here of not focusing on what is in front of him.
Yeah.
Because when he was at like the heights of his powers, there was talk of him and Tyson Fury having this mega fight, but he had Andy Ruiz Jr. to fight
Yeah.
this sort of relatively unknown boxer, and that was his first loss. He got knocked out, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I think that's a classic example of not focusing on the task ahead and it all
No.
going tits up. He's never really recovered from it. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen to somebody with their running, but focus on what you're doing at the moment, particularly if it's a session. Focus on it. Really understand that session that you're doing, and not worry about the 3 by 5K at marathon pace that you're going to be doing in 6 weeks' time.
No. Exactly. Exactly. Because you are there in that moment and you are, like we've just said, you aren't ready physically or mentally for that session in, 3 weeks' time. So don't worry about it. And yeah, focus on what you're doing right now.
Yeah. So yeah, to sort of complete the answer to your question, yeah, in training, I'm very much about focusing on the process, really dialing in on what I'm doing right now. Um, in life, I fly by the seat of my pants. What's happening today?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. That really is kind of my life. So I don't even know what I'm doing on the weekend yet. It's Thursday night.
See, but I think that's good to have that balance between the two, because I think if I was just thinking about how, because I am not this person, but when you are working with, or and I mean this in coaching life, but in working wherever, a place of work, someone you're coaching, high achievers are, it's really tricky sometimes because I'm not a high achiever, I don't think, in the sense of if I get
Oh,
something, if I know, as in, I mean it in the, I don't beat myself up if I don't achieve something. I'm realistic about it. Yeah, I'll be disappointed, but it's, like, we hear a lot of now. You learn a lot from your mistakes and you learn a lot from things that don't quite go to plan.
mm,
And I think it's important to talk about that as well, because like we said, it's not always going to follow a upward trajectory. It's going to hit potholes, it's going to plummet at some point. Maybe it'll then be fantastic and you'll be climbing and you'll be improving in a great way. And that's fantastic. But it's, dealing with when mistakes are made, or, things don't quite
Setbacks and
plan.
yeah. It's funny you mentioned that, actually. I'm just looking over to my other screen because I had a conversation with Lakes, who I coach with the world's biggest quads. He's probably listening to this, laughing there. But he texted me yesterday. He said, "Quick question. I've just finished my run outside. Bad idea. The weather was awful. I managed to complete the run, but ended up running during some of the intervals. I struggled to stay within the target range for the 1K repeats. Is this normal? It really annoys me when I have a session and can't hit the paces."
Hmm.
Fast forward one day,
Yeah,
one day.
yeah,
After moaning yesterday, I had my best run in a while today. Laughing face. Felt really, really strong.
absolutely. And that's life.
Mm,
And I
that's
think,
training. That's
yeah. And funnily enough, you'll remember this, Nick, when you first started coaching me, how hung up I got on not hitting interval paces. And I was
mhm,
like, this is really crap. What's wrong with me? Having not really, it's that classic case of you coach and you train people, but myself, I didn't write myself a plan, really. I just, well, winged it for many, many
mm,
years, and was fortunate to be able to have winged it. Um, and you don't necessarily get hung up on interval paces or anything like that because you've not set them out. So it's kind of irrelevant. But then I was like, oh, I'm not hitting the pace. But then next week I'd do a session and I'd be flying and
mm,
feeling great. Tuesday I did a session and I didn't quite hit the paces that I wanted to. And for some, I do this all the time. I was like, I felt great then. And then I look at my times and I was like, well, that's shit. But it's not shit. It's just that it felt like it should have been better.
mm,
But then I talk to myself and I say, Faye, you were ill for a week and then you were kind of just trying to recover for a week.
mhm.
So it's fair that that's probably the first speed session you've done in a couple of weeks. And it's all right. So yeah, it's having that conversation with yourself, isn't it? And reassuring yourself that actually it's just one session. It's not the end of the world. On to the next.
Yeah, and I mean, Lake's, his commentary there is, I do tend to find that a session not going very well, or a run, in general, or a strength session, or whatever it might be, not going very well, is usually a precursor for adaptation, and that
Mm-hmm.
there is going to be that leap forward coming soon. In Lakes' case, it was the following day. Um, you know, I've seen it before where I'll have a session and it's gone terribly. In fact, I had Tom the other week. He did the 12 by 3 minute of threshold session, went terribly. We did it again the following week, and he absolutely blitzed it. And I just tend to find that a bad session is usually the precursor for adaptation is about to happen, and you will make that leap forward. I see it
Yes.
all the time myself. I have a bad session, and then all of a sudden, a few days later, a week later, I have a session that absolutely knocks it out of the park, and that carries on then into the next training block.
Yeah. Absolutely. So yeah, people don't lose your confidence just because of one session, or you know, it's not the end of the world at all. But
Yeah,
yeah.
indeed.
So what I thought I might talk about now, just so people have got something to take away with them,
Mm,
and I always make it sound like, well, I'm probably talking about something people have heard before, but it turns out when I speak to people, they actually don't know much about it necessarily unless you move in these circles. But in regards to goal setting, obviously, depending on what your line of work is, or what you do, it can get banded around a bit. But I think the acronym SMART is something that's, yeah,
mhm,
timeless and useful for lots of elements of training, but again can be applied to those longer term kind of objectives, but equally can be kind of slotted in along the the process so that you've got smaller goals, or medium term goals to kind of aim for as you go along. So I know I kind of did the opposite of New Year goal setting with my athletes and set them. I asked them to set themselves a goal based on a weakness 6 weeks out from Christmas. And the reason being is I'd noticed that kind of motivation was lacking because, you know, the weather's rubbish, the evenings are dark and nasty, and the temptation to not go out for that run is massive. So I thought, right, let's talk about goal setting and let's do it now, because let's try and keep motivation up as we go into the festive period. And it was with them kind of talking about making sure that it's specific to them. So really sitting down and thinking, right, I want to work on something that's been bothering me, whether it's, hip mobility, or, glute strength, or getting more confident with hill climbing. That's just a few examples. And specific in the sense that also that they've got kind of that want to improve it or change it. Because if your desire isn't there to achieve it, you're not going to stick to it. So making sure it's specific, and that you're thinking about you now, and it's all about you and this specific goal.
Just going to add to that, like, particularly with things like races, there can be those things that you want to improve in, training those smaller goals. But like when it comes to like your big races, so particularly in the ultra marathon context, I always say, be really specific about what your goal is for this race and why you are doing it.
Yeah.
And why you've even booked that race in the first place. Something like an ultra marathon, when you're at mile 80 of 100, you still got 20 to go, and you are hallucinating, and and your legs are screaming at you. You need a really good answer as to why you set that goal in the first place.
Yeah.
Why you need to keep going for the extra 20 miles.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's going to carry you through, isn't it? Why are you doing it should always be a question. Every time you question yourself, why are you doing it? And go back to that goal that you've set and the reason why you've signed up for this race, or you've, whatever it might be, just remember why you're doing it. And then measurable. So is it something that you can measure, whether it be you're measuring improvement, whether it's, frequency? How can you and say your coach work with you to measure your results and then subsequently measure your progress and improvement? I think that's really important, because anyone out there who uses any kind of sports tracking platform, whether it's Strava, who ruin your confidence, or
Strava AI is just,
oh my goodness, it's shocking.
The worst. It's so bad.
Honestly, I don't pay for the premium one, so I don't really see much information from it. But some of the stories I hear from people, and I just think, what the hell?
Yeah, Strava bot. It's
awful.
Congratulations on your snowy trail run today. It was slower than recently, but that's okay. Like, fuck you. It was supposed to be slow, you twat.
It's like you are trending below your average,
your average pace. Like, fuck off. It's supposed
awful. It's awful. But let's use Garmin, although I hear stories about Garmin as well. I don't have a Garmin, but I do laugh. I have a friend who shares photos of his watch saying, your fitness is declining, and he's like had 2 rest days. And things like that. But if we look at
unproductive,
You've been unproductive for 24 hours.
PB, marathon PB. Yay, I got a marathon PB. Garmin, unproductive. Your VO2 max has gone down 5 points.
Exactly. And
fuck off, Garmin.
I think it's important, to select the information and the data. Might be as simple as going, do you know what? I've ticked off 3 sessions this week. And, I've ticked off 3 sessions each for the last 4 weeks. And on top of that, I've done a strength session. That is awesome to look back on and go, look what I've achieved. And that's kind of your first building block in, the process towards that end goal. And, being able to sit down at different times along the journey and go, look what I've achieved. And a bit like you just said then, you do a session, it might not go as well as you want, but then you revisit that session the next week or the week after and you go, oh my God, look at that. This is what I'm capable of. It's okay that first time didn't go so well. And actually, I think it's better, don't you? That you can then go, actually, I'm going to change this next time. Or you actually go into that second session maybe a bit more relaxed because you think, just going to see what happens. So yeah, then on to achievable. So again, comes back to why are you doing it? Is it a good time for you to be doing this? If someone offers you a ultra marathon place for March and you've not run anything over 10k for a year, is now the right time to say yes to that ultra marathon? And I'm not saying that you can't do an ultra marathon and just go and enjoy it, because of course you can, but in the sense of, if you wanted to be prepared the best you could possibly be prepared, perhaps that ultra marathon in March is not a good idea.
I'd fancy just turning up an ultra marathon having not done any more than 10k for a year.
But it's that
I don't know if I'd enjoy that,
but
even if I try to.
But it's that thing where temptation is everywhere now, isn't it? And with races, you do not go onto your Instagram without seeing a new race organizer or the temptation of a new race or this race or that race. I used to be that person that would race every weekend, not ultra marathons, but like I'd be doing a race every Saturday or every Sunday. I might do back-to-back Saturday and Sunday. I'm never doing that now. I used to do it and I did love it, but now the thought of it just makes me come out in hives. Like, I just wouldn't do it. But
you're right about temptation being everywhere.
Yeah.
The other day, Alison said, we're going up to Snowdonia, aren't we, in May for our yearly... we stay in a little wood log cabin on Anglesey when UTS is on. I said, well, no, because I'd mentioned it to you before Christmas and you didn't seem that enthused about going to Snowdonia. So, well, yeah, I want to go. Like, I like our little trips up there. Oh, well, it's all sold out now. UTS 25, 50 and 100k are all sold out. But the 100 miler isn't.
Oh God!
Do you think I was tempted to?
Yeah, of course you were.
Yeah, no. Luckily, I said no, no. Don't sign up for a 100 miler 3 weeks after London and 3 weeks before a 100 miler that you already got booked.
No. But no, you're quite right. It is that temptation to sign up to something because it's everywhere, or someone you know's doing it. Just think about, is this goal that you're setting achievable, and is it right for you to be doing it at this time? I'm now trying to so then on to realistic. Again, kind of links into that, but thinking, is this a realistic goal for you personally? Again, it comes back to you. So you are always bringing it back to you and why you are doing this. So thinking, is it realistic in regards to, where you are right now, the time you have available and the resources you have available? Because I think sometimes, depending on where you are in life, whether it's work, whether it's family, it's thinking about, have I got, the regular time available for me for the next, 16, 20 weeks to
I think
commit to training for
yeah,
this.
for me, I think like the two kind of big differentiators between achievable and realistic. Like the realistic thing, I think, from my personal angle, is like the realistic bit needs to be, is that actual goal realistic? So, is my 2:35 marathon realistic? It's pushing it, but it's realistic. But if but I'm a 2:50 marathoner, and I did that, with no real specific training. The last time I did that PB, so okay, I've got 15 minutes to trim off, but that is my absolute focus now.
Yeah.
I did that 2:50 in the middle of training for something completely different. Um, but would a 2:35 championship marathon place be realistic for the guy over there who has never run faster than 4:30
Absolutely not.
at his other marathons?
And
No,
you
that
just,
isn't
yeah.
realistic. Is it realistic for somebody to say, well, I want to do a sub 20 park run in 4 weeks' time when they only did a 30-minute last week?
Hmm,
That's not
absolutely.
realistic. So being realistic about what are the realistic
Yeah.
goals that I can achieve.
Yeah, and maybe also linking that into the weekly training that is realistic for a person. So
Mm.
in the sense of, you know, not setting that expectation that someone has to be doing 6 runs a week
Mm.
to achieve a marathon. And I often have this question put to me is, I've only got 3 days a week that I can train. And I go,
Cool.
that's fine. That
Yeah,
is
cool.
absolutely fine. But I think again that expectation has been set, and that comes from many directions, where if you're going to achieve a outstanding marathon result or even just finish a marathon, you need to be running 5 or 6 days a week. You
Yeah,
don't.
here the mileage thing kind of pisses me off, because you hear so many people talk about, well, you need to do this much mileage to run, a marathon, or a specific time at a marathon. I'm actually on a sub 3 marathon group on Facebook, and every time I see somebody go, how many miles a week do I need to do to run to a sub 3 marathon? It's like, how long is a piece of string? It's not just about the number of miles you run does not correlate to the time that you're going to
No,
run something in. It doesn't.
no.
I know people that, in fact, there was a very good South African runner that just did a 2:08 off 30 miles a week.
But the thing is, it comes back to that quality over quantity every
Mm.
time. And yes, you could spend your weeks running 6 days a week. You could be pushing out, I don't know, let's say 16 hours of training. You become very good at being on your feet. But other than that, for most people, it's going to have a detriment on your performance in the longer term.
Probably going to break down trying to
Yeah.
trying to do some of the mileage I see on some training plans,
Oh, and that again comes back to what I
amongst
saw. I saw the other day.
kids, work,
Yeah.
doing the washing, all of that sort of stuff. Trying to fit that kind of mileage in is nuts.
Because I think, and I always say this if I have a message from an athlete saying, "Oh, I've missed 2 sessions now," and I go, "It's okay. Let's talk about how we can, reassess this for you to make it work." That person has had extreme stress in work, been in work a lot more than normal. And I said, that's fine. We'll just adapt it. We'll adapt your training program so that we're looking at sessions that the frequency of sessions will cut back a little bit, and I'll adapt those sessions that you're doing. So you're not going to lose out, but you're going to lose that level of stress that you're getting. Not only are you getting stress from work, but you're getting stress from running, and that is definitely not what we want. because running is your outlet, running is your hobby, running is the fun thing you do. And it should always come back to, again, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this because I'm sponsored by Nike and God knows who, and I'm expected to perform at this level because I'm going to get a paycheck at the end of it. We do this because we pay to do this hobby. We don't get paid to do it.
No, we don't.
And you sometimes go, look, we cannot be taking it this seriously. It's what we enjoy. And where did this all begin? It began because we enjoyed it. And I always try to get people to remember that, because essentially that's what's going to keep you going.
Yeah.
When times get tough.
The actual act of training itself is a stress as well. And if you've got, if you're trying to train too much, you might be enjoying your training, but the actual physiological response from training is training stress. We have training stress score in Training Peaks, right?
Oh God, yeah.
And if you've got too much of that stress on top of life stress, kid stress, job stress, wife stress, husband stress, whatever it might be, that we have these stress buckets. I was saying, if that stress starts to overflow, that's when you get injured. That's when you get ill. That's when you start to hate either your running or your wife or your kids or your job, and it's not worth it.
It's really not. It's really not. Yeah. And then to finish, last letter, T. So I know this can be interpreted slightly differently, but it basically is around having a timescale or time bound in some way. Because if you set a goal with no timeline attached to it, it's irrelevant. So whether that big goal is, like we said, 15 weeks time, is London Marathon, that's your long-term time boundary.
Yeah.
And then within that, you will perhaps have like a B and a C race where you'll use those for certain training elements, practice, and they will then be slotted into the program and they will have a time scale to them. And again, it's you link back through the acronym and think about, is that time scale, realistic? Is it achievable? And it kind of interweaves with each element of the goal setting plan, but just thinking you have to have a time scale set for it to work for you.
I think in running, particularly getting ready for events, that's like the big time bound goal is quite an easy one, because we know when London Marathon is, for example. We know when that race that we booked in July is, etc. But I think what's quite good from a time bound goal aspect with running is having not just that big, the big race that you've got at the end of the end of the training plan, but also those little sub goals that you can have along the way. So you talked about them, the B's and the C races. They are, I would say that they are process goals, because they are part of the process of getting you prepared for the big one. But also you can use those as little goals as well, because that 10K that you signed up to in February as part of your training plan towards London. There's going to be people I know. I mean, here's a classic just from my own personal perspective. Part of my goals towards London are running a half marathon PB at Bath, which is in March.
Yeah.
If I don't get that PB, I won't be totally crushed by it. But if I do get it, it'll be a nice little win on the way to achieving the bigger goal.
Absolutely. And they're important as well, because it keeps your motivation there. It keeps you engaged. And like you say, I think sometimes when people set out those B and C races, actually, they approach them with a bit less pressure. So the outcome of those races or events can often surprise people, because they don't have that expectation that they have on that A race. I know for me personally, I don't, and this is very personal, but I don't use the term A, B, and C race because it freaks me out putting
Mm.
all my eggs in one basket for one race. But I think it is important to have those smaller goals towards the bigger objective, and kind of using those to, yeah, keep your head in the process, really, and not lose sight of what you're doing, and again coming back to why you're doing it.
So I do like A, B, and C races. For me, the A race is like the big goal. The B is, that'd be a good one to test where we're at. And, if it all goes well, great. If not, it doesn't really matter so much. And C is just like, it's a bit of practice. If that goes well, brilliant. If not, it
Yeah.
really doesn't matter. Um, and I know what you're saying about the whole A goal thing, but that's why I always have A goals booked after the A goal that I've got now. So, like, my current A goal is London, but then
Yes.
my next A goal is the South Downs Way 100,
Yes.
and then my next A goal
Yeah.
is Lakeland. So once the A
Yeah.
goal is done, reset next A goal.
Yeah.
And I do think,
I think
again,
that's a better
from
way.
a
I prefer that approach in the sense
yeah,
of, yeah, yeah,
and for me personally, like having that, this is very much about goal setting, isn't it? So I can't just have I can't just have London, for example,
no,
in my plan, and that's it. I've got to have something booked after that, because I am one of those people that if I don't have something booked, then I'll not really kind of know what I'm supposed to be doing. And I do, I love running for fun, but for me
it's,
personally, I like
yeah,
structure.
it's easy to. I think I'm a little different to you in that sense, that I'll just amble around like a crazy person, in the sense of, just if I've got like the holidays, the last 2 weeks were a prime example. Unfortunately, the first week I was ill, but the second week I had the chance to run every day if I wanted to. And I've lived somewhere new and I had the chance to explore. But that's when I have to be careful, because I then get carried away and I'll be wanting to be running in the woods every
Mm.
day, and I'll be wanting to go and explore this path and that path. So different in the sense of, I quite like not having the structure, but I veer off very easily to overtraining zone, because I just get excited and want to go and see this and go and explore that, and you know um yeah, so structure is good and is very valuable when it comes to, one, aiming for a goal, but also keeping yourself on track and not picking up injuries or overtraining and various other things that can come about.
Yeah, for me, without something to focus on as an A goal, I'd probably end up doing something daft, like, oh, I'll just go for a 15 miler today when I shouldn't be going for a 15
Exactly, and
miler.
that it happens, doesn't it? And I think, yeah, you're quite right. If it's written on the program, you go, right, this is what I'm doing today, and you do it because we like that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely.
Good, cool. Anything else, Faye? What else have you got?
No, at the moment, I think, just to say to people, it might be January and you might be, listening to other people or scrolling through your Instagram or TikTok or whatever it might be, and get people are talking about, set this goal here, set this New Year's resolution, new year, new me. Just take a minute to think about you and what you want. What's the goal? And making it specific for you and realistic. And yeah, don't necessarily jump on the bandwagon with everybody else, and just think, right, I want to do this race. This is why I want to do it. And yeah, work towards it from there. But try, and it's really hard. It really is hard. But just try hard to, keep it about you and what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it.
Indeed, got to be about you. It's got to be your goal. Don't do anything for anybody else. It's yours. I mean, okay, there are things you can do for other people. Like, part of my goal for running London is actually raising money for breast
Oh,
cancer now.
absolutely. But I think it's just important. And some people might say, oh, it's quite selfish. But for goodness sake, there aren't many things that are fully about you. And I think when it comes to stuff like this, obviously there's considerations, but just that it's about you and what you want to get from it. And at the end of the day, just make sure that you're enjoying it and you're going to enjoy the process to get to that goal, because that's one of the biggest challenges, keeping yourself on track and keeping yourself motivated.
Yeah, have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Good. All right, Faye, it's been awesome to see you and have you on the podcast, co-hosting with me. And for anybody listening, shout out to the Goku Projects hats, who are our official partner at Maximum Mileage Coaching. If you want discount with them, you can get 10% off using the code maximum10. Link is in the show notes. And if you want even more discount from them and lots of other, actually, I've had quite a few messages this week, Faye, from people
about the new stuff.
Yeah, all the stuff on Patreon. That we offer to people. Yeah, like loads of messages from people getting True Start coffee and talk and protein works and stuff. Literally, I've had loads of messages, particularly about True Start coffee. Actually,
they're fantastic
because it's their discount that we get, and our subscribers get from Patreon will pay for like your Patreon subscription will be paid for like 6 months.
Absolutely, it's a very generous. Very generous.
50% off the first one. 50.
Yeah, it's
plus,
great. Yeah,
plus 25 ongoing. I think it is.
It's very good, and I'm not just saying it because I think I tried True Start and introduced you to it, and I honestly will say it's the best instant coffee out there. The ground stuff's great as well, but for convenience, particularly for me at work, the instant stuff is awesome. And
I'm a snob, so I've got a bean to cup machine. So
I don't have that luxury at the moment.
And that's delicious. It is really good. Good.
Either way, it's very good stuff.
Yeah. Anyway, folks, if you want any of that discount, please do join the Patreon. It is not just discounts. Faye and I are actually going to be putting content on there every week. We are writing blogs for Run Ultra, and we'll be turning some of those blogs into actionable content that will only be in the Patreon account. So please do join. And I also have something else quite exciting in the works. I have somebody developing the ability to go onto our Patreon account, and we'll have a workout library on there, and people can select workouts, and it will send them directly to their watch as a structured workout. How cool is that? No other Patreon people have got that.
Exactly.
So we'll have that very soon. So make sure you subscribe. Anyway, cheers, Faye.
Thanks. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast.
You can find more out about us at maximummileagecoaching.com. If you think you need help with your running and you think that either myself or Faye could be the coach for you, then drop us an inquiry. No obligation whatsoever, and we'll have a chat with you about your running. And there's plenty of resources on the website as well. And don't forget, you can join us on the Maximum Mileage Running Podcast Facebook group. Until next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.